Welcome to the Shred the Spread podcast. This is episode 4, Monday edition, recap edition. I am your host, Jared. If you're new, thanks for tuning in. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. We have a little bit of a schedule update. I believe we have some consistency going forward. Monday is just going to be myself. We're going to be recapping the games, recapping the picks, and then talking about Monday Night Football. Thursday edition. I believe this is the upcoming schedule. Dynel, who was on last podcast episode, Saturday edition, he will now be on the Thursday edition. We will break down game by game, going over the spreads, some early leans, a longer episode. Saturday, we'll have a shorter episode. We'll go through the games very briefly. We'll give our picks and our finalized picks. And then we'll come back for Monday edition with myself. So going forward, that will be the schedule, and that's what you'll be looking for. So keep update for that, but let's go ahead and dive right in and get started on Recap Monday. So there were 12 games yesterday, and there were 6 outright underdog winners. This was a wild weekend for the NFL. For those of you who made money, great job. For those like myself who just barely stayed afloat, also good job, because a lot of people went under bad yesterday. Was a lot of money in different places, and the public hammered some good spots. They also got killed on some bad spots. But we'll just go through real quick. Dynel went 3-2 on his picks. He nailed the Seahawks. He nailed the Jets, which we went head-to-head on. I took the Packers like a fool. And he nailed the Vikings. A lot of people were on the Dolphins, so that was a really good pick on the Vikings. He did, however, lose the Ravens, which was a crazy game. That'll be the first game we cover. And he also lost the 49ers. Myself, I went 2-3. Luckily, I had most of my money on the late games with the Bills and the Eagles, but I did go 2-3. I hammered the Bills and I hammered the Eagles, but I did get the Browns and the Packers wrong, and my gosh, I got the Saints wrong. That was such an ugly finish to that game. Jamar Chase is just, he's him. It's hard to bet against the Bengals, but like I said, I still don't think they won that game convincingly. It was an ugly game, and they came out on top, so I can't be too mad about that. But I did hammer the Stafford over half an interception for those who were on the Thursday episode. I did mention that. That was one of my favorite plays. I also did give out the Eagles -3 for the first half. And then, like I said, I hammered the -4.5 for the full game, -5, -5.5, and -6. So I had a lot of my money tied up in that. So those early games weren't really too much of my concern. But if you guys remember the last episode, I was telling you how much I love this Eagles game and this Eagles spot. So hopefully you guys cashed on that as well. But Stafford over interception, I might be riding that for a while unless they're playing an absolutely piss-poor defense. But, so let's go ahead and get into the first game. Ravens 20, Giants 24 is the first game. Lamar went 17 for 32, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 awful interception on his game-winning drive. Kenyon Drake had a day, 10 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. Lamar Jackson had 7 for 77 rushing. J.K. Dobbins didn't see the ball the whole second half. I don't even think he got into the game. I know they said he was on a snap count, but however, not seeing the whole field for the second half, I think that might be something a little bit more. That's what we'll have to pay attention for. But big receiving day for Mark Andrews. 7 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that guy is the ultimate safety blanket for Lamar Jackson. Dan Jones, 19 for 27, 173 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. The guy has been golden for the Giants. Saquon, 22 rushes for 83 yards, about a 4 yard per carry average, and a touchdown. Giants also had 8 different receivers with a catch. Bellinger and Wan'Dale Robinson led the way with touchdowns. But at the end of the game, Lamar Jackson, for those who didn't watch the game, the ball was snapped either to his side or over his head. He chased it behind him, ran out. Instead of throwing the ball away, he tried to make a play, and he threw an interception where Julian Love made a hell of a play and sealed the game for the Giants. I know a lot of people were on the Ravens -5.5. That was one of Dynel's picks, obviously, but the Giants pulled it off. As mentioned in the Thursday episode and the Saturday, we both said, you have to pick a team who you trust more. The Ravens are going to get out and start hot. Do you trust them to maintain that consistency? Or are you going to let the Giants, what they usually do, they creep back and they find ways to win? And this was a spot where obviously the better bet was +5.5 for the Giants, but they won outright. And, this was one of the crazy games at the start of the week. So this moves us to the next game. The Colts won at home 34 against the Jaguars, who had 27. I mean, the home team win trend continues for this rivalry. We were talking about this last episode, dating back for the last few years. Whoever's at home generally wins this game. Jaguars got out to an early lead, but the Colts just hammered and chiseled back by halftime. Trevor Lawrence was an extremely efficient passing the ball. He was 20 of 22, 165 yards in the air and a touchdown. Etienne actually had a really good game. I believe he had a 75-yard rush or catching touchdown that got called back because they said his knee or forearm was down. But regardless, he had 86 yards on the ground and 22 in the air. Jaguars defense did not get any pressure on Matt Ryan. I don't even think he got sacked one time, but Matt Ryan had a damn day, turned back the clock, and this is the offense that Frank Reich wants to run, but it's obviously inefficient when you have Matt Ryan back there struggling to complete passes, but he threw the ball 58 damn times. He was 42 for 58, 389 yards and 3 touchdowns, and my God, did Deion Jackson come through for these boys. He was the third string running back with Hines and Taylor out. 42 rushing yards on the ground and a touchdown. He had 79 receiving yards, and exactly is what Matt Ryan wants, to be able to dump down when he has nothing downfield. Michael Pittman Jr. finally had a damn game. 13 receptions for 134 yards. Heavy pass game for the Colts. They eliminated turnovers, and they were able to pull this game off, cover, and get the home victory. So let's move on to the next game. Patriots 38. At Cleveland, Browns put up 15. All I can really say about this game, because this is one of my picks, I had the Browns. Mac Jones might be losing his damn job, or fighting for it, to say the least. Bailey Zappi, on the road, 24 of 34, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and as predicted, Ramondre Stevenson dominated the ground game, 19 carries for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Patriots had 4 players over 60 yards receiving, which is absolutely incredible. Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Jacoby Myers were of those 4. I don't even know where to start with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, I don't know what the hell he was doing. He was awfully inefficient, threw 2 interceptions. He was 21 of 45, so he wasn't even at 50% completion. 266 yards, and on top of that, the Browns could not run the damn ball. Chubb was 12 of carries for 56 yards. Hunt was 4 carries for 12 yards. Offense just could not get going. This was just an extremely poor performance, and I'm not ready to say the Browns suck, but I don't know if they got out-coached, out-schemed, or Jacoby Brissett just had an awful game, but they need Deshaun Watson on this roster so damn bad. We got a battle of the Who Dat versus Who Dey Nation. Bengals 30 at the Saints 26. This was the Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase show. Joe Burrow, 28 of 37 for 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Ja'Marr Chase, 7 receptions for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the 1 game-winning touchdown for 55 yards. Ruins the cover. Bengals win that game. And like I said, I still believe that the Bengals are winning these games extremely ugly. Are they a better team than the Saints? Yes. Should they have won that game? Yes. On the flip side, the Saints gave so many opportunities to the Bengals to run away with that game. They were just hanging in there. Kamara was controlling the game on the ground. The Bengals were never in control. So I still believe I was on the right side of that Saints +3 pick. It was a killer that we lost it by 1 point. But, Andy Dalton, 17 of 32 for 162 yards and a touchdown. Nothing incredible. Alvin Kamara is getting healthier, more production, 19 carries for 99 yards. But, you really didn't get any receiving production from the Saints besides a Traquan Smith touchdown. They're just a ground-heavy performance. They slow the game down, try to beat you by the clock. But the Bengals have explosive plays, so they make up for the time and difference. That was ultimately the deciding point of the game. So the Saints lose that one 26 at home versus the Bengals, who had 30. Buccaneers on the road scoring 18 points at Steelers, who scored 20. Eye test game. This was extremely ugly from the Bucs. A lot of weird penalties. 1st and 15, 1st and 20 a lot of times. Long 3rd down with no 3rd down conversions really at all in the first half. They scored 1 touchdown the whole game. Ended up having to going for 2 to tie it up. Didn't get it. I mean, I don't really know what's going on with this Buccaneers team. They have weapons. Offensive line pretty shitty. Tom Brady seems to be on the ground every time, so that might be one of the big contributors. But, Brady was 25 for 40 with 243 yards and a touchdown. Fournette, 21 carries but only 63 yards. Godwin, 6 catches for 95, and Evans, 4 catches for 42. Kenny Pickett left that game with a concussion. He was 11 for 18 with 67 yards and a touchdown. And this was at a point where it was a very close game. It was a one-possession game, and Mitch Trubisky came in, and he shut shit down. 9 for 12, 144 yards and a touchdown. And, Steelers won with absolutely zero rushing production. So the Steelers had to throw the ball, which I was hoping would be the benefit to the Bucs, because if the Steelers can't run and you're anticipating pass, they have a lot of corners and some good safeties and linebackers, and I thought they were going to eat that pass up. Well, Steelers won, no rushing production. Najee Harris had 14 rushes for 42 yards, and Pickett had 2 for 16. You get Mitch Trubisky in the game where he can't take off, so he's sitting in the pocket and he's just dotting up. Claypool had 96 yards and a touchdown. Connor Hayward, I believe one of the backup tight ends for Freiermuth, had 2 receptions for 49 yards, and Deontay Johnson 5 receptions for 28 yards. So there really wasn't any spectacular production all around. It was mainly their defense. It was a field goal fest from the Bucs and a battle of field position for the Steelers. I did on Thursday edition say I lean Steelers. The Buccaneers have just not been playing that crazy, so I would take the points with the Steelers. I sprinkled it, but it wasn't one of my main picks, unfortunately. That moves us on to the 49ers 14 traveling to Atlanta, who had 28. 2-score underdog victory. This was one of the strong leans on Thursday. I'm glad I got the bet in at plus 5.5. I wish I sprinkled a little bit more. Wish I made it one of my main bets. I got to stick to my guns a little bit more, but this was just a dominating performance from the Falcons. The most surprising stat is that the 49ers allowed 3 different Falcon rushers over 50 yards on the ground. Caleb Huntley, Tyler Algier, and Marcus Mariota. And they were all pretty damn efficient too. Shit's going your way when Kyle Pitts scores a touchdown. He's been one of the most disappointing high draft picks, probably highly anticipated in the league. Kyle Pitts gets in the end zone, and that's kind of how you know this wasn't anything going right for the 49ers, especially when the 49ers had 0 rushing production. They're a run-heavy team. They set up the play action with the Deebo Samuel plays. 0 production, 50 total yards on the ground for the 49ers. That's not their identity. Missing all these key pieces and players is making them play at a different pace and level. Some ugly turnovers from Jimmy Garoppolo and some miscues led to the Falcons to maintain control of this whole game. I believe they had a fumble that ended up resolving in a touchdown for the Falcons defense. It was just all around a shitty performance for the Niners. And, going forward, obviously they'll get their players back, and I'm sure they'll get back to character. But this Falcons team has been spread covering machines. Obviously they win this game outright, but they're definitely a team to keep your eye on. Let's see if the public starts hammering them a little bit more. That might lower the spread, but their spread has been so inflated. It's kind of like you always have to keep an eye on the Falcons going forward. Can someone please explain to me what the hell is going on in Green Bay? I mean, my God, it just gets worse and worse each week. First the Giants, now the Jets, the first team, I believe, in this decade to lose back-to-back weeks to either the Jets /and/or Giants. I mean, Jets went on the road and won 27-10 against Green Bay. This was an extremely ugly performance from the Packers. Again, the Jets win with Zach Wilson throwing the ball less than 20 times. Zach Wilson was 10 for 18 with 110 yards, but the story was Breece Hall, 20 carries, 116 yards and a touchdown, and the Jets defense/special teams. Aaron Rodgers was 26 for 41 with 246 yards and a touchdown. They still are not getting any rushing production from A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. They combined for 60 yards on 20 attempts. Robert Tonyan had a day, 10 receptions for 90 yards, and Lazard got into the end zone with 76 yards. But you seem to see Rodgers getting himself off the ground every play. The Jets were flying around. I still can't believe the way they're winning. It's not sustainable. I still haven't seen Zach Wilson do anything. Elijah Moore had 0 catches for 0 yards. When he was asked about it, he basically said, I'm not going to say shit because that wouldn't be me being a team player. He said he obviously wants the ball, but he doesn't want to look selfish. So maybe some friction in that locker room. But I still don't see the way the Jets are pulling these games off. They're not getting any passing production. It's a lot of defense and special teams play, which obviously you need all three parts of your game to be on in order to win in the National Football League. But a blocked punt, not interception, but fumbles. It's an all-around shitty performance for the Packers. I still am not buying the Jets. I know I took the Packers minus 7.5, and Dino took the Jets plus 7.5, so he did win that head-to-head, but I'm still not buying it from the Jets. This is a Packers team I'm just going to have to stay away from, and a Jets team I'm just going to have to keep an eye on going forward. The Minnesota Vikings traveled to Miami and beat the Dolphins on the road, 24-16. Kirk Cousins was 20 of 30 with 175 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook had another efficient game, 13 rushes for 77 yards and a touchdown, which I needed as being a season-long fantasy owner. Justin Jefferson, 6 receptions for 107 yards, doing what he does. Adam Thielen also finally gets into the end zone. Skylar Thompson left the game after getting banged up. He started 7 for 13 with 89 yards, but Teddy Bridgewater comes in firing. 23 of 34 with 329 yards, 2 great touchdowns, but also 2 very, very bad interceptions that changed the game. It's crazy to see the Dolphins lose with having Tyreek Hill, 12 receptions, 177 yards, Jalen Waddle, 6 receptions for 129 yards, and Mike Gesicki, 6 receptions for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dolphins weren't really getting any production on the ground, which forced the ball to stay in Teddy Bridgewater's hands and keep the ball in the air. Although they were making very good plays in the air, the turnovers killed it for the Dolphins and gave the Vikings the win. Also let them cover that 3-point favorite spread. The Los Angeles Rams beat the Carolina Panthers 24-10. This game actually turned out how I imagined. McCaffrey, game with a backup quarterback. He's going to get production and not anyone else. McCaffrey had 16 rushes for 69 yards. He also had 7 receptions for 89 yards. Robbie Anderson looked to have gotten removed in the middle of the game. Who knows what's going on? It could be possibly a trade or something's always going on with that team. Matt Stafford, 26 of 33 with 253 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception to cash that interception prop. Darrell Henderson was the main back with 12 carries for 43 yards and touchdowns, with Cam Akers wanting out of LA. He was out for this game. We possibly will see him be moved by the deadline, but Allen Robinson gets into the end zone. He finally showed up on the stat sheet. 5 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown, and Cooper Kupp doing what he does. 7 receptions for 80 yards. Not much to say about this game. Panthers are a shitty team. Rams are playing like their identity. Rams take that game by 2 scores, 24-10. The Cardinals traveled to Seattle and lost 9-19. The Seahawks handled that game. This might have been the ugliest game to watch on Sunday. The game finished nowhere near the implied game total of 50 points. Kyler Murray would do one thing great and another thing worse. He was 23 of 37 with 222 yards, no touchdowns, and an awful interception. He also had 10 carries for 100 yards with an awful fumble when they were in scoring territory trying to come back into that game. Geno Smith, 20 of 31 with 197 yards. Not amazing, but no turnovers, which was the difference. And Kenneth Walker dominated the game on the ground with 21 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. This game was very boring, very slow, not the scoring I think we expected. Not much to talk about. Congratulations to Donnell for hitting your Seahawks +3 or +3.5, whatever it was. Seahawks went outright, but Cardinals stink. Nothing else to it. The Buffalo Bills go on the road to Kansas City and get the job done. Man, was I so high on this Bills team this week, and I'm so happy they pulled it off. This was one of my main bets, one of my favorite bets, the Bills -3. Cover the spread, go on the road, get the W. Josh Allen is playing out of his mind. 27 for 40, 329 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Devin Singletary came into a realm of his own. 17 rushes, 85 yards. Diggs had a day, 10 receptions for 146 yards, and Gabe Davis, his sidekick, 3 receptions for 75 yards and also had a touchdown. Mahomes was 25 of 40 with 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 awful interceptions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not help the running game. He was the leading rusher with 9 attempts for 33 yards. Juju and Travis Kelce, respectively, 113 yards and 108 yards. Juju ended up getting a touchdown, finally gets into the end zone for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Josh Allen made less mistakes. The Bills had rushing production, the Chiefs did not. Mahomes' interception in the red zone early in the game, tries to flip it over the defender, and gets picked off going to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He also, on his game-winning drive, rolls out and forces a pass and gets intercepted by Taron Johnson. This is exactly why I took the Bills to get it done. I just love this Bills team. They're so aggressive. They make plays. They cover all aspects of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. They even got the ground game going, which the Chiefs did not. Bills cover. Bills win. Congratulations to Josh Allen and the Bills. Mahomes is obviously going to bounce back. He had a great game besides those 2 interceptions. I was actually very surprised. I did not see a Mahomes game-winning drive. They needed a touchdown instead of a field goal, which was huge for the Bills' perspective, but Bills get it done. -3 covers. And I expect to see these two teams playing later on in the year.
What's going on here is that there's growth under the soil. I put a picture of a flower up, and the roots are growing out. And the only way the roots grow out every single day is if we all do our part.
We are all so much better than you fucking realize. All of you have talent. All of you have value to this organization. And I've seen this grow. When we play our game, nobody can with us. I promise you.
This team just keeps fighting. You're up 20, you fight. You're down 7, you fight. It just keeps fighting. That's who we are. We're tough. We're nasty. We're physical. That's who we are.
To the end zone and caught by Devontae Smith for the touchdown. Intercepted. Darius Slay. Big play. Slay has done it again.
That's freaking right, man. Ain't nothing get me more hyped than the Eagles hype video, especially when I hear my man Jason Kelce talking. My God, he makes me want to run through a damn wall. The Eagles hosted the Dallas Cowboys last night on Sunday Night Football, and they took it to them. Eagles 26, Cowboys 17. We cashed the first half -3. We were riding the spread change all week. I got the Eagles -4.5 for a unit. Eagles -5 for a unit. Eagles -5.5 for a unit. And Eagles -6 for a unit. My favorite game of the week. Just so happened to be my favorite team. And it made me all the money. I was telling everybody on the podcast last episode, I would take this all the way up to 7. No ifs, ands, or buts. Cooper Rush was 18 of 38. 181 yards. A touchdown. And 3 interceptions. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got 2. One of them was credit to James Bradbury. Playing lockdown defense this year. Knocks the ball up in the air. Pick drill. Boom. C.J. Gardner-Johnson grabs one. He also grabbed another one later in the game. And Darius Slay. Big play Slay. Mr. Lock it down on the outside. You got to stop throwing to him. He's going to snatch that shit more than he gives it up. Darius Slay, 1 interception. 2 C.J. Gardner-Johnson interceptions. Zeke ran the ball pretty efficiently on the ground. He was 13 attempts for 81 yards and a touchdown. And the rookie, I believe, Ferguson, the tight end for the Cowboys, filling in for Dalton Schultz, had 4 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 15 for 25 in the air, 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders killed the game on the ground, 18 for 71 and a touchdown. But you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Both had 5 catches. A.J. Brown had 67 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, 44 yards and a touchdown. But the story of this team was efficiency and defense. And my God, did Cooper Rush run into his first test of the year. Gave the ball away 3 times. The Eagles dominated that game, first half and second half. The second half was a huge statement because we've been falling apart in the second half. But they cover the full game. They cover the first half. Eagles are back. They're playing out of their minds, and Philly sports is here for it. So this brings us to Monday Night Football. Prime time. The Chargers are 4-point home favorites against the Broncos, and the total for this game is 45.5. Russell Wilson received that quote-unquote surgery for his arm or shoulder, and he's expected to play, and the Broncos are obviously without Javonte Williams, who tore his ACL. The Chargers are top 10 in scoring, and the Broncos are top 10 in turnover avoidance on offense. So the ball is going to be kept in their playmakers' hands for both teams, and you kind of have to take a side here. Do you trust the Chargers to put up points and cover this game, or do you think this game is going to be a back-and-forth, slop fest. I personally think the Chargers are going to take this one. I think we're going to go and give some props for the future for the primetime locks, and we're also going to give our primetime pod lock, which we are currently 1-1. We hit the Chiefs and Raiders over 51, and last week we got disappointed, took the Bears +1. They should have won that game, but it is what it is. So one of the props I like for this game is KJ Hamler under 1.5 receptions, and that is a plus money play. I believe it's like plus 118. You might have to shop around to get the best odds. But I just think that the Broncos are going to be a stale offense. I just think the Chargers are a better team. Their defense isn't that bad. I think the Chargers are just all around better, so I do think they win this game. I think they cover, but I think I have a different play for our primetime podlock. I'm going to start giving out first touchdown props, for one for each team. So I do like Justin Herbert at 22-1 for the Chargers. I'm looking for value here. I'm not really looking for, like Austin Eckler. So I do want to see if we can hit some good value prop first touchdowns. So again, I like Justin Herbert for the Chargers at 22-1. And a sneaky one for the Broncos, I'm going to go with Mike Boone 11-1. I believe that Melvin Gordon is going to be the main down back. He's going to be the workhorse. Mike Boone, even when you saw Javonte Williams was a part of that rotation, he was still seeing touches, so obviously he's going to have a lot of touches. You can get Mike Boone at better value for first touchdown prop, and that's obviously what we're looking for. I believe Melvin Gordon is 8-1, so I don't hate that, but obviously I think the Chargers score first. But if the Broncos do, I think it's either going to be Melvin Gordon or Mike Boone. We're officially going to take Mike Boone at 11-1. So that brings us to our prime time pod lock. We need to get a win here to stay above 500, and I think we're going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers first half -3, and that is a -110 bet. I just don't see the Broncos ever controlling this game. I see the Chargers probably taking off. I also like the alternate spread of -6.5 for the first half. I believe that's like plus 200, so not bad value on that. They just have to win the first half by a touchdown, but I do officially want to take as our primetime pod lock Chargers -3 first half. I believe they get it done. I believe they win the game. The Broncos just always start games off slow. Are they going to score touchdowns? I hope so. I hope we don't get another snooze fest. The Broncos and Colts was horrendous to watch. So hopefully we do better on these primetime games for Monday and Thursday. But Chargers -3 primetime pod lock. We're going to lock that in. So again, we got KJ Hamler under 1.5 receptions for plus money. And first touchdown props, we have Justin Herbert at 22-1 for the Chargers and Mike Boone at 11-1 for the Broncos. And we're officially going to take the Los Angeles Chargers -3 first half. So we're going to wrap it up. This was episode 4, Monday edition, recap edition. We went through all the games, we covered Monday Night Football, and we made a pick. If you listened this far, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate the show on Spotify or iTunes. We are also now available on YouTube, so you can pick your choice of where you would like to listen to the podcast in the future. If you enjoyed this podcast, be a friend, tell a friend. As always, I am your host, Jared. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you Thursday for Thursday edition with Dino.